Today we're starting Unit 7, talking about solving quadratics. So first of all, whenever we solve a quadratic, the solutions to the quadratic are just the x-intercepts. So when we solve the quadratic, we're finding where that parabola, if we're to graph it, where it crosses the x-axis. Solutions, x-intercepts, zeros, and roots. These are 4 different words that all mean the same exact thing when we're talking about quadratics. Solutions, x-intercepts, zeros, or roots all mean the same thing. So Unit 7, Lesson 1 deals with solving quadratics by factoring. Now we're going to look at first, recall this is standard form of a quadratic, and the first type we're going to look at is where a is equal to 1, meaning that I won't see a number in front of x squared. When that is the case, probably easier if we just look at an example. Let's say I want to solve or find the x-intercepts or the roots or the solutions or the zeros, whatever you want to call them. Solve x squared plus 5x plus 4 is equal to 0. Now notice that it's equal to 0. If that is not the case, you'll need to move everything to one side, combine like terms, and make sure that 0 is on the other side. Once you have your equation set up like that, as long as there's no value in front of x squared, or if it's just a 1, I'm going to look at the very last number, and I want to factor it. Think of, what do I multiply together that gives me 4? Well, I know 1 times 4 and 2 times 2. Those are the only things that multiply together that to give me 4. And I'm looking for the special pair that when I combine them, add them together, it gives me the middle number. So look at my two sets. I have 1 plus 4, which is definitely 5. 2 plus 2 is 4, so that one's not going to work. So the only pair I will have, which you will only have one, that works here is 1 and 4. So I'm going to write this in what we call factored form. I know that the factors are going to be x plus 1, because I have this positive 1, and x plus 4, because I have positive 4, and I'm going to set that equal to 0. You can check yourself by foiling. If I foil these two factors back out, then I should get x squared plus 5x plus 4, and you can try that to be sure. All right, but I want the solutions. I want to know, what does x equal? Once I have it in factored form, I'm going to use what they call the zero product property. I'm multiplying two things together, and I get 0. So that means that at least one of them must be equal to 0. I just need to know what it is. So once you have it in factored form, just take each factor and set it equal to 0. So I'm going to have x plus 1 equals 0, and I'll have x plus 4 equals 0. And now I have two simple equations that I can solve. Subtract 1 from both sides. I get x equals negative 1. Subtract 4 from both sides, and I get x equals negative 4. So these are my two solutions, or x-intercepts, for that quadratic. So let's look at another example. Say I want to solve x squared minus 8x plus 15 equals 0. Again, the number in front of x squared is just 1, so I'm just concerned with this last number, and I want to know what are the factors that multiply together to give me positive 15. When I add them together, I get negative 8. So if I'm going to add numbers together and get negative, I know that I got to have negative numbers. 15 is positive, though, so think about, what will I multiply together that's going to give me a positive 15, but when I add them together, I get negative 8. In order to get a positive, I need to multiply together either two positives or two negatives. So in this case, since I need to add together and get a negative, I know that all my factors are going to be negative. So I'm going to list them out, smallest to biggest, so that I know I don't miss anything. I know 15, if I multiply negative 1 times negative 15, that gives me positive 15. 2 won't go into 15, but 3 will, so negative 3 and negative 5. 4 won't go into 15, but 5 will, and now I'm starting over on my list, so I know I have all my factors. And again, I want to add them together and see which pair will give me -8. -1 plus -15, this is -16, that's not going to work because I need -8. -3 plus -5 definitely gives me -8, so this is the pair that I want. So I'm going to write it in factored form. So I'll have x minus 3 because of the -3, and x minus 5 because of the -5 equals 0. Now that it's in factored form, just set them both equal to 0 and solve. So I get x is equal to 3 and x is equal to +5. So these are my x-intercepts for this quadratic. All right, one more example with a being equal to 1, meaning there's no value in front of x squared. Let's say I have x squared minus 5x minus 6 equals 0. So again, the value in front of x squared is just 1, so I'm just looking at this last number. What are the factors of -6 that when I add them together I get -5? Now the last number is negative, so think about what you have to multiply together to get a negative number. I can't do two positives, and I can't do two negatives, because a positive times a positive and a negative times a negative give me a positive. So I know that whatever I multiply together, one factor has to be positive and one factor has to be negative. So think about what my different options are. I know 1 times 6 is +6, so -1 times 6 will give me -6, or +1 times -6. Also, I know 2 times 3 is 6, so that means that -2 times +3 is -6, and +2 times -3 is also -6. So now these are my 4 options as far as pairs of factors go, and I need to figure out which pair is going to add together to give me -5. So I'm going to start at the top of my list. -1 plus 6, that's equal to +5. That's not going to work. I need negative. 1 plus -6, this is -5, and it should be the only pair, but we can go through and check. -2 plus 3, that's +1, not going to work. 2 plus -3, this is -1. Again, I need -5, so that's not going to work. So +1 and -6 are my factors. So I will have x plus 1 and x minus 6 equals 0. So I get x plus 1 equals 0 and x minus 6 equals 0. So x equals -1 and x equals +6 are my solutions, or my roots, or my zeros. Okay? All right, so that's it for a equaling to 1. There is another video. Go ahead and watch it. This is the case where a is not equal to 1, so we got to do a little bit more fancy things. Other than that, if you have questions, of course, harass me, and I'll harass you, and you'll have a great day.